Chapter football podcast on the Believe Podcast Network, presented by betonline.ag. Once again, I'm your host, Matt Perkins, joined as always by Badger legend, the Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Matty, how are we feeling today?
Today's a great day, man. We got head coach Sean Lewis. Man, I it's so exciting because we were friends 20 years ago? I'm not saying we're not friends, but we were friends a long time ago. And it's so nice to circle back. I'm so grateful for you to come on the show and chop it up with Matty P and I. I mean, I can't wait to hear, you hardly ever get head coach people to come on a show. So it's just going to be interesting about your mentality and what you do and the NIL from your point of view. And please don't say anything that you think might get you in trouble, but you see these things way different than Matty P and I do. I'm also a couch potato watching you coach on a Saturday. So I'm interested to hear what that's like with the headset on. So, but what we do here is we start, well, dude, thanks for coming on.
Hey, I appreciate the opportunity. It's awesome to reconnect. I mean, sure, we it feels like an eternity ago. We were running around on our Yamaha Zumas and going to get some swipes and getting some meals where we could, right? And it's great to double back and connect, man. This is awesome.
It is very fun. It is very fun. I'm sorry, I was just jumping in. I was just so excited, talk football and hear all the new stuff. I mean, I'm so outdated. But what we do is we want to hear Sean, where you came from, why you started playing football, what was little Sean like? I mean, that was 6'5" ago,
120 pounds. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, you're from the Chicago area originally, right?
Yeah.
Were you born there?
I was not. I was born in Slidell, Louisiana. My dad was down there. And so me and my sister were born down there. And then my dad was from Chicago, and work transferred him back up to the Chicagoland area. So grew up on southern suburb, Oak Lawn, right outside the city, and played down there at Richards High School. And Coach Kevin Cosgrove found me down there. He's another Southside Chicago native, and plucked me and got me up to Wisconsin. But yeah, little Sean, man, tall, gangly. I've always kind of been that way. Didn't start playing football. My parents wouldn't let me start playing football until my fourth grade year. And so it was funny, great story that I love to tell. My friends started playing in second grade, and it was I'm nagging my mom, and my dad was kind of always on the fence, hey, talk to your mother about it. She doesn't feel safe. You're so skinny. I'm like, yeah, I get it. What have you? Right. So it was always just basketball, baseball, and just run around with neighborhood friends. But finally, fourth grade came along. Mom was like, all right, you've been bugging me for 2 years. Let you have at it. Right. And so I go out, and all my buddies have been playing for 2 years. So they know what this is and what it's about, the old Oak Lawn Outlaws back in the day here. And I remember the first couple of days of padded practice and just being like, what did I get myself into? Right? Boy, this is all right. This is real. Here we go. And I remember my mom, she'd always take me to practice because she got home from work first, after school and everything. And then my dad would pick me up. And one of these days, I'm feeling way too sore. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. And we had one rule. We had multiple rules, but there was one rule that was always stressed in my family growing up. When you start something, you finish it. You're not going to quit, period. That wasn't an option. And my parents were awesome for me and my sister. We didn't want for anything. I was very fortunate, but we weren't rich either by any means, right? So they put up the money for this, and nope, you've been bugging us for 2 years. And my mom wasn't hearing it at all. And she's throwing me in my pads and my butt pads, where my knee pad should be, and my thigh pads where a hip pad should be. And she throws me out of the car on the way to practice day. She's like, your dad will see you. You're not quitting. It was the first time she was like, get your mind right. Let's go. And, my dad got me, and, I'm trying to tough guy it out. How was practice? And, but thank God moms are awesome. She didn't let me quit. And now, fast forward the video of life, I'm running my own program here, and everything that I have for me and my family and the journey that I've been on is because of football and my mom not letting me quit. So pretty cool.
Do you ever talk to your mom and be like, or talk to other parents and be like, dude, football's the best sport. You should let your kid play.
Absolutely.
What do you say as a coach now to that question? Because that question is big.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the most important duties that we have as a coach right now, to be a steward of the game and really to protect the game, So I think football is unbelievable. Obviously, you got to make sure that, the people who are leading and coaching and guiding the young people who are playing it are doing it the right way. But I think you'd be hard pressed, and I could argue and would argue that there's not a better sport to teach life lessons and the fellowship and camaraderie of teamwork, right? The diversity of a locker room, that if our world was that way in all facets, man, it'd be a heck of a lot better place, right? You would just be more open to ideas and perspectives. And, everyone has these niche roles that they play. And it doesn't matter how good you are as the left tackle or the safety or the linebacker or the 3-tech or the quarterback. Like, if you don't have the other people around you, your skill set does not matter at all. And I think, again, that's a great lesson that we could all learn from. Like, none of us have gotten where we are sitting here talking, being successful in our lives, if it wasn't for other people around us, right? And I think football just teaches that, and it teaches the resiliency that you need, because just when you think you're doing all right, life will humble you. The game of football will humble you. And it's awesome. I mean, it's just so much fun too. Like, I tell our guys all the time, you get praised for things in between the white lines in the game of football that if you do them outside the white lines, like, and that's a unique beast to be able to do, and a lot of fun to be able to coach and be a part of, and encourage more people to be a part of it.
It's funny. We actually had Chris Orr on the podcast recently, the former Wisconsin linebacker, and he was saying, he grew up in a big football family. His dad played in the NFL, his brother's in the NFL. And he was saying that, he's talking to his mom. He's like, yeah, you would, like, I'm a completely different person in between the lines. You would not like the person that I am in between the lines. Was that sort of the same thing for you? Were you a different person once you stepped onto the field than you were off the field?
Yeah, it was always an outlet, right? And I think the best guys that we've always been around, like guys, I think about guys that I played with at Wisconsin. I mean, Bernie being one, and Joe Thomas and OD and B Cal and guys. I mean, Starkey, like all those guys. Like, you could kick it and be boys in the locker room. I remember being on campus, and I graduated early and lived with Stocco, and right across the hall, was Monty. And it was like one of those deals where we stepped in between the lines, and like, he put his arm around me. I'm this young pup, like, no problem. But then, he wanted to take my head off. But then, like, I got moved from quarterback to tight end. And like, we're literally, like, I remember, like, being across from him, going mano-y-mano and doing what you need to do to play the game in between the white lines. And, but then off where we were boys, right? Like, we were really, really good friends. But yeah, you got to be able to flip that switch, and you got to be able to play the game in that way. And yeah, like, some of the nicest guys in the world outside the white lines are some of the baddest dudes in between the white lines.
Yeah, we're on a Zoom with one of them right now.
Absolutely.
Matt Bernstein.
Absolutely. No doubt.
I would say that I would agree that, Sean, you're saying the truth about me. I would go to the bars, be the nicest person to everyone, buy people drinks. Like, Sean, if you showed up, you and me would get drunk together. Like, I'd just be happy. Like, it'd be the best. But you put me on the field, and it was like people are trying to like kill my family. I don't know. There's something wrong. And I think every football has this, which I actually think, first off, I'll never feel that feeling again, right? Like, no matter, I can never get that hyped, that excited, that tuned up again, like working out wise, knowing my responsibility to go on the field and like just unleash it on other dudes. And really, you're trying to hurt people, but within the game's rules, right? Like, nothing dirty, but absolutely. If I knocked a dude out in completely legal. Where were we? In Arizona. I don't think you were on the team yet. This might have been. Oh no, you were. This is in 2004. That was
the rain game where we all slammed the Pedialyte because it was supposed to be 100 degrees, and then we go and we play, and it's like 72 degrees, and we had a 4-hour rain delay or whatever.
It was hot for the first quarter, and then it rained. I hit this dude straight on the ear hole. He crumpled. He was knocked out. Like, he just went limp. Kind of scary actually to see. Sure. I was pumped. I was over him. Giving him like the Randy, like the macho man. I was like going pumped. I walk into the locker room. We're at meetings, and Hughes is like, "Bernie, get in here." I was like, "Shoot, I definitely missed a block. Like, this guy wants to yell at me." And Hughes he MF'd you. I walk in there, and he's like, "God, this is what I want to see for every play." He's like, "Bernie, why can't you do this on every play?" And just kept rewinding it. Me knocking this dude out. And I was like, man, this is the best moment of my life. I think Hubes gave me like a small, like a nice word, and I was like, man, this is amazing. But you can do those. So it's like crazy when you say like Monty, and some of my best friends are guys that we banged heads too many times. Zalewski is one of them, like Taj. Like these guys are like my boys.
Zoo. One of the biggest hits I took was in a spring scrimmage from Zalewski. We ran a little tight end middle screen, and I turned around. The ball was a little high. I tipped it, catch it, turn around, and Zoo ran through my face. And but it was like it speaks to the culture that we had, that Coach Chris has carried through. That you talk about a band of brothers there, and what we've created here at Kent State as well. Like, we could be roommates, we could be pals, we could go to Ian's Pizza at any hour of the day and be thick as thieves. But when you stepped in between those lines, if we were going to compete and you're going to put the ball down, there's going to be a winner or a loser. Like, I love you, bro, but iron sharpens iron, and strap it up. Like, stand by to get some. And that's all that you could hope for, right? And because of that, man, we won so many football games just because of our resolve and our character and our grit and our toughness, and that carries through. And those are pillars that I've built my program on here, that we learned there, that I know are steadfast no matter how the game has changed. Like, the simple fact of the matter is that the tougher team usually wins. Like, talent and skill being equal, if you're tougher, you're going to win, and it's a great thing.
So let's go back quickly. You mentioned Paul Chris, and I want to ask you about the relationship like you might have had, or did you call him? But let's go back. So what made you choose Wisconsin? Like, who else was on the board? We're gonna kind of rush through because I have 100 head coaching questions that I want to ask.
Absolutely.
So what
don't want to talk about my college career there up at Wisconsin, other than I learned a ton of ball. But how I ended up at Wisconsin, right, was I was kind of a regional recruit, you could say, right? Like Midwest, was kind of Big Ten up. And it came down between Iowa, Purdue, and Wisconsin. And I remember going up to Madison with my family in the summertime, and the staff taking me around, getting a chance to meet some of the guys on the team and everything. And everything that I was looking for was important for me, that my family was going to be able to see me play with how much they had put into it, right? So from where I was from and where Madison was, it was like 2.45, maybe, if that, right? They're going to be able to see all the games. So that really played into an important factor in my decision. The degree that I knew I was going to walk away with, right? And then just the camaraderie and the comfort of being around the guys and the staff. It's like one of those deals that where it just, everything I was looking for, right, like lined up. Like, they just, matter of factly speaking, it, like, there was a drive time that we were looking for. There was the degree program that I was looking for. And then the opinion, I leaned very heavily on my dad, who went around with me and got a chance to feel everyone. I think my dad's an excellent judge of character, right? And when he was around and got to interact with people, and we were just in the cities and different things like that, we just felt at home at Madison. And ultimately, it was one of those deals going before my senior year. It was like, that's where I knew where I wanted to be, locked it down, early enrolled, and got after it.
So you were early enrolling was not a big thing when you were there. And so now it seems like there are like 8 to 10 kids for every school, every class that are coming in early. What was the early enrollment process like for you then? And have you been able to transfer some of that knowledge you gained while you were early enrolling to the kids that you are bringing in early now at Kent State?
Yeah, awesome question. It was all brand new, and it was actually on a recruiting trip that a different school brought it up, because they had made the point that, they asked a question like, as a quarterback, we want our quarterback this class to be an early enrollee. Are you doing that? And I remember, like, me and my dad kind of looking at each other like, tell us more about this. Like, this is the first we're hearing of this. What are you talking about? And so I was fortunate, actually, the freshman high school coach that I played for was my academic counselor at my high school. So we went back, and it was like, hey, this school mentioned it. Let's talk kind of through the pros and the cons of it all. And, what do we need to do? And I actually ended up writing for my high school newspaper, because that counted for an English core credit because of the writing, which was awesome. And that gave me the core units that I needed to graduate early. And it was great. Like, got there, it was me and Jamison Davis. We were the only two in our class. And it was unique in a sense that it was so new. and you're kind of in this limbo of you weren't in. So I was in the 2004 high school graduating class, but the 03s were on campus. The rest of the 04 signees weren't. And so like by the time the summertime when the 04s came on, like me and Jameson were like, yeah, come on, like we'll show you around. Like we know where stuff's at. Like we were kind of like these like weird veterans that were still rookies. And it was always like, I just remember my whole time being there. It was like, what class are you in? Like, who do you belong to? Because it was such a unique deal. And having gone through that and lived that, again, there's pros and cons to it. Like I remember going back for my senior lock-in and like prom and graduation at the high school level. And I'd been on campus for a semester already. Like I literally like took a nutritional science 132 final that first spring, the morning of my high school prom. Like took the final on a college campus. Mom picked me up, ran home, got my tux, and went to prom. Like very, very unique experience. And so being able to live that and speak it now, like we had 8 early enrollees this year at Kent State. So to your point, it's much more commonplace. And, just be able to speak to it from a having lived it standpoint helps just walk the kids through whether it's the right thing for them or not.
Sean, that seems to be a common trend now is for more. I showed up at Wisconsin a couple of years ago and they had 10 guys there. To me, that's but you lived it. Did you like it? Like, was that something you enjoyed? Would you go back? I mean, my second semester, senior year in high school, you can do whatever you want. I mean, you could really do whatever you want. So what was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it because I knew that like where I was going and what I wanted to do, right? Like in high school, obviously there was the classroom setting, right? But athletically, it was football and basketball for me. And basketball was something that I played to stay in shape for football. And so I was signed. I would know that I was going to play, ball for the Badgers. And it was like, well, I can run around and I can play high school basketball again, or I can start, working towards the ultimate goal of becoming a starter and becoming a contributor at Wisconsin. And so I've always just been a real goal-oriented individual. I think the way that we all are driven in the sports world, right? And it was like, okay, I just felt like my time individually at the high school level was good. That had run its course, and it's time to go on to the next chapter. And, I felt it was really beneficial for me, not for everyone. Like it's something that like, even as though it's becoming more and more common, I think now it's more common because of how specialized young athletes are becoming really, really early. Like you just don't see multi-sport athletes, which is just crazy because, you show me a football player that's playing basketball and baseball or running track or wrestling year round. Like those are all skills that are applicable to the game that ultimately they're going to get a scholarship in or that they want to pursue. So, play as many sports as possible and don't have burnout in one sport. That's my PSA on that. But I think because of that, right, like it's much more commonplace and it's probably helping with the transition, maybe more than what myself and Jameson had when we did it, because there is a little bit more cohesion of, hey, it's 10 guys now, it's 8 guys now. Like there's a little crew there that gets to roll through the experience together.
Yeah, and I would say that experience is tough coming from outside of Madison. Coming out from outside of Wisconsin, we had Tez on, and you just show up and you're at the Regent with 12 guys that you know from all over the country, and you got to try to figure out like who all these people are and who you are. But you had one dude. Although I actually, Jameson was a great guy, so you two
Absolutely.
Together were great people to come in with, but like. Okay, so I don't want to get bogged down because I to me that's really special. Like you and Jameson coming in. I remember you guys coming and I always thought like that was crazy because I loved my high school. What was it like when you show up and you're in the locker room and now you're basically part of you're part of the team. Like you're thrown in and you're a teammate. What's that like?
It was wild, right? And I think that transition, no matter when you come in, is hard. Like speaking very candidly, right? I think any athlete that's done that, you go from being top dog, all state, what have you, right? Like big man on your high school campus to where you walk in this, college locker room now and everyone's that dude. And I think anyone who says like, hey, I knew I belonged from the very beginning, like 100% confidence it's a bunch of BS. Like there's some doubt in the back of your head where you're like, all right, like, here we go. Like, I got to figure out to find a way to get some victories here to know that I belong a little bit, quite honestly. And when you walk in, like at the time, shoot, my birthday's in April here coming up. Like I was 17. So those first 4 months, like I'm on campus, I'm a 17-year-old and you're looking around the locker room and like Lee, like I remember Lee Evans coming through one time training with Det, and he was getting ready for his pro day and he had just caught, the jerk for a touchdown. Like I was up for that game day visit and everything. It's like, damn, that's Lee. Like he's going to the league. And like in that moment, like I felt so far away from where he was, or, like just in the journey of life. It was like, man, when he was catching that touchdown, I was in fourth period honors physics in high school. And now like we're sharing the locker room. And I remember one of the very first workouts, right? Like coming in, talking with Bebot and Herb's, like, talking me through the recruitment process. Like, you better come in here in shape. You better come here in shape. And I'm like, I'm going to come in here in the best shape of my life, because you come back at the start of that winter conditioning phase and it was like, all right, let's see who did anything over break and who's really in shape. And we'd get on the line and run the
shotguns.
The shotguns. And so we do like our first workout and I feel like I'm in great shape. And like the workout downstairs was like, oh, that was real. And like I kind of like sat for a minute and Bebot's like, yo, come on, let's go. We're going upstairs. And I'm like, we're going upstairs? Like, yeah, we're going upstairs to run. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, let's go upstairs and run. And it finished with some shotguns. I remember getting through all that and sitting in front of my locker. And it was just like, all right, like it's time to do more. Like anything that you did at the high school level to get you here, like that's all well and good. But it's time to crank it up. If you're ever going to get on the field and you're going to contribute, like you got to do more than you've ever done. And again, like that's just a great lesson to learn. Like, hey, there's levels to this. Like you're at a different level. Like, let's go. Let's crank it up.
So Sean, so you did the transition. What's the transition? Like, what do you do now? What's the culture for you with people coming in? What have you taken from Wisconsin in your journey to say, oh my God, I can do something better here?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, again, is just helping those kids understand to know that, like, hey, when you get here, you really don't know what you don't know. Like, yeah, it's football. Yeah, it's school. You've never lived on your own before. So it's okay. And I think the things that our staff does a great job of is on an individual level, really knowing their recruits. And then when they get here as signees and they start acclimating into our locker room and our culture, like, there's the Kent State way of doing things. And our coaches help guide them through that so that they can have a level of confidence that, all right, this is how this needs to be done, the standard at which it needs to be done. Our kids do an awesome job in the locker room of showing them much the same way, that you did for me, Bernie, like, hey, there's the real world time and then there's Badger time. Like, yeah, that lift starts at 6 whatever, but we're going to be in the weight room at 5:45 because that's what Badgers do. You're like, all right, like there's positive peer pressure. Like that's what we do, right? Like, and it's the same thing here. Like that's carried through. Like, hey, we're going to be early so that when I roll into the team meeting at 8 a.m., like the team meeting starting at 8 a.m. And so be early and let's get it on. But just helping our kids know and understand, like, it's okay to not know because you don't know what you don't know. And we're going to teach you, we're going to guide you. But ultimately, you're responsible for you, right? That old adage of give them the fish or teach them how to fish. Like we're going to teach them how to fish here at Kent State so that they can have success and know how we win on and off the field. And again, a lot of that is taken from Coach Alvarez's program and things I learned from Coach Chris and sitting in the room with him and Coach Bielema. There's a reason why there's been sustained success at Wisconsin. And, while we've had 3 consecutive winning seasons here at Kent State, which hasn't happened since 1972, like, there's a lot of similar pillars that run through both the programs.
That's fantastic.
Sean, go for it, Matty.
Yeah, I was going to say, you came in as a quarterback. And so were you running scout team your first year?
Yeah, I was up until the Minnesota week. And Minnesota had Matt Spaeth at tight end, who was 6'7", 270, whatever he was.
First team all conference. I think he was an All-American. Like he was a beast.
He was a dude, right? And so I'll never forget, we got done with the developmental lift or meetings and we're getting prepped, taped and everything for practice. And I'm hanging out in front of the locker and Coach Palermo walks by and he goes, hey, come here. and he calls me over by the equipment shed and everything, the gate. And he's like, he hollers to Peels. He's like, Peels, Lou here needs some tight end shoulder pads, and we need to change his face mask on his helmet. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And he's like, hey, bud, your future in this program is at tight end, and there's no one in this program that can replicate Matt's faith more than you. So get ready to put your hand in the dirt and let's go get it on.
When was the last time you had played anything but quarterback?
Cole, shoot.
Like middle school?
Fifth grade? Yeah, I was like fourth or fifth grade, my first year playing ball. Like it was, it had been since the beginning. Absolutely.
My God.
So we changed pads, and I go from that cute green jersey that the quarterbacks used to wear to red or white, whatever we were wearing that day on the scout team, and put my hand down, and Erasmus James is lined up right across from me. And it's like, all right, block power, go for it. And I'm like, all right, time to go see the nutritionist, and how do we need to gain some weight?
Time to get in that squat rack and put on all that heavy weight.
Absolutely.
Oh man, that seems like a very harsh transition.
You know what? And again, like this is the beauty of the culture at Wisconsin. And hopefully if you guys talk to any of my guys at some point in time here, of having a player-led locker room and having guys and believing and having trust in the staff to know, hey, there's a reason why we're doing this. And having a guy, like Jason Posiak coming over and saying, hey man, like you're going to be all right. Right. Like having OD come over and put his arm around me and say, hey, the journey and the path that you're about to walk, like I did it. Like here's some things that you can predict and shoot. I mean, Joel Nelson is one of the nicest human beings in planet Earth. And just the guys in that tight end room, right? Like how they openly welcomed me in, and still the guys in the quarterback room, like I was still like, so we made that transition, and then I was still signaling plays. Like I was traveling as a redshirt freshman, and it was like the guy signaling plays. So it's hilarious. Like, I'm down with the scout team running the tight end deal. And then come game day, like I'm just as locked into what's going on. And again, like it was a blessing in disguise because I had to know kind of both sides of it. And I just fell in love with the process of the weekly deal and, kind of put me on this path to be in the profession. But yeah, it was an eye-opening experience from not being touched at practice and just throwing the ball around to, hey, go scoop block Taj and, Monty and Erasmus and all those
Jefferson
dudes.
And like, oh yeah.
Absolutely.
You never, the thing is people don't get is the green jersey meant do not go near that person.
Right.
Like, don't touch them. Don't go near them. It's that typical, used to be the red jersey, but we wear red. So they had the green. To take that off and then to put on something else that like basically you could get crushed by anybody it must be a scary, that to me would be very scary.
And so the timing of it all too, right? Like, so being the mid-year enrollee quarterback, I had the green jersey. We went through spring ball. No one was allowed to touch me. Like all those guys that I had to go block now for 15 spring practices and half the year, like don't touch them, don't touch them, don't touch them. Then I come out in the regular go jersey, like, hey, he's live. He's going to block. Like, they're like, oh, it's on now. Like there was this like pent up rage where we couldn't touch you. Oh, you're going to feel us. And it was like, all right. Like, so for that whole first year of that transition, I just learned how to take a hit the proper way and like build my body up so that I could give some hits ultimately. Like that.
You're also playing against some of the best guys to ever play defensive line there.
It was awesome. Like the iron sharpens iron mindset. It was like, hey, cool, you're going to do this. Great. We're going to get you trained. And you're going to have to prove all over again that you belong a part of this brotherhood and that you're going to be able to contribute and that we can trust you. Like I remember that following spring being in, like somehow I got thrown into inside run with a series of reps that I had no business being in and like line up on the left side of the line. And Joe looks over and like just extends his hand and like pushes me out. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, I need to get my split. And he's like, bro, like these knees are worth millions of dollars and you just started playing this position. Like, why don't you widen out that split a little bit? And so I knew I had made it. Like I at least had a level of respect within the locker room with the transition. when I could line up next to Joe and take a normal split. And like, I don't like, he never wanted me next to him in a real game, in real balls, but at least in practice, like, all right, okay. All right, you're good enough. I know you're not going to impact me. Like, good. And
that's how you figured it out. And Joe's like, you don't need to take a wide split.
Yeah, I'll actually let you line up in a normal split next to me. Like, all right, halfway decent. Have an attempt.
Oh my God, that is absolutely phenomenal stuff. So what was everyone? So we've actually had Bot on the show. Okay. And we've had, a bunch of guys always talking about the weightlifting and the weightlifting program and your strength and conditioning in general. What was like the biggest shock to your system when you got there, when it came to weightlifting? I mean, you talked about that first workout, but what did they really have you working on, and how did that change when you went from quarterback to tight end?
I mean, the biggest thing was all the muscles that you don't see in the mirror to me, right? Like there's the show muscles that when you're in high school, like, hey, yeah, let's bench press and let's make sure we have a six pack. I mean, I was a quarterback, right? Like just all that sissy stuff. And then like, okay, hey, like we got to put some traps on you. We need some lats. You need to get in the squat rack, as Bernie mentioned, like just the actual go muscles that were emphasized so that you could actually do your job in between the white lines. They did an unbelievable job of that. And then Bot he started doing the functional movement screens when we were there, just kind of, how your body moved through space and where there was some weaknesses in your kinetic chain, that he did an unbelievable job with that. And some, I remember doing a series of exercises with him at the end of each lift to kind of shore up those little kinks in the armor where there would be some deficiencies, and just how specific it was with those simple movements. Herb's with the nutrition, like again, with the transition, it was like, I remember Herb just making up some post-recovery shake. He'd be like, hey, it's a orange whip. And it was like some orange Julius flavored something that was like 1,000, 2,000 calories. Like, just drink it. What's in it? Don't worry about it. Drink it. Like, okay, sounds good.
Those metric shakes were disgusting, by the way. Disgusting.
Yeah, they're like concrete.
Yeah. Anyone who had to gain weight, I feel really bad for at Wisconsin, because they made you drink the metric shakes. They couldn't, because we were still like kind of feeling like the shoebox. So like they couldn't give you anything really else. I think we had Ensures, but right. I think they would mix Ensures with the concrete metric shake. And it was like thick, gross. And if I was drinking one, JD or one of those dudes, Herbs would be like, Bernie, you shouldn't be drinking this. And I'm like, man, fat shaming started very early.
There was something, I remember like the Babcock Hall like started producing something for us early on that was specifically for weight gain guys. And that was actually like when that started, it was like, all right, this actually tastes halfway decent. Like I can semi enjoy this. And that was
pre-made.
It was like in a carton or something.
Yeah. I remember that too. It was like thick though.
Yes,
thick.
Yes. You needed a spoon. Like no matter what it was, if you were a weight gain guy, you weren't drinking your shake. You were just, it was like a frosty consistency of just calories.
It's so gross. That's so gross. So it's so funny, but I just remembering like,
I'm glad we can laugh about it now, right?
It's funny because like every time we have someone on, they bring up something so different that I forgot about. Right. Like I feel like I've forgotten so much more than I remember, but it's really funny to go back and be like, wow, you had to do the metric shakes. And then the Babcock ice cream, which I totally forgot, created these still not great, but better shakes. Oh, it's just funny. It just brings me back to the hilarious days. So after college, what made you want to be part of this? Did you know like what was going through your head when you graduated?
Yeah, so I got done and knew that I had an itch to coach. Didn't really know at what level. I remember walking into Coach Chris's office at the time, like he was our offensive coordinator, and there was one year where he was coaching the tight ends when I was there. So we had a great relationship and still do. He's awesome. And like going like, hey, talk to me about this coaching deal. And I remember him just kind of like sitting back in his chair and being like, man, I really thought you were smarter than that. Like there's such an easier way to make a living. Like, I thought you were one of the smart ones. I'm like, nope, powerfully dumb. Like, this is what I want to do, right? And so him and I had a great conversation about it. And I just, again, everything we kind of talked about in the beginning of the game, the lessons that it teaches you, the amazing coaches that we were around and the impact that they had on our lives at Wisconsin. I was fortunate to play for an unbelievable high school coach who was the all-time winningest coach in the state of Illinois. So it was like one of those deals where it was like coaching and how that has impacted my life and other lives and the team and the locker room. And like you said, Bernie, to where, I was kind of having a healthy fear, I think, of like the excitement of game day and the rush and the energy that like, man, if I'm not a part of this, like where is that joy and jubilation and high going to come from? Right. And so, I messed around and did like the office supply sales, deal career for like 3-4 months. And it was just like, exactly, man. It was bad deal. And was fortunate that opportunity came along at my alma mater to be the offensive coordinator there because there was a coaching change, and did that for 2 seasons and was actually back up in Milwaukee after that second season with a bunch of Badgers with Jimmy and Joel and Calhoun and Pimo and just talking about everything. And Joel was actually like, hey man, you got a real passion for coaching and helping young men grow. Like, don't take this the wrong way, but I think you're kind of wasting some of your talents and your passion at the high school level. And, if you can make the jump, at the time I was, just dating my girlfriend and now wife. We didn't have a family. So it was kind of like that time, right? Like we're like, if I'm going to do this, we got to do it. And, was able to make that jump to the college ranks, thanks to Pimo and a door that he opened for me and everything. There's always a Badger tie through it that I've been very grateful for. And yeah, so it's just kind of one of those deals where, the impact that it's had on the young men that I've been able to work with, it's just been, man, so fulfilling on so many different levels.
That's phenomenal. So you played under both Coach Alvarez and Coach Bielema, and you had Coach Chris as a position coach. Yeah. What is like, they obviously all have very different styles and sort of it seems like, at least from the outside, I obviously hadn't played for them, different approaches to the game in terms of, their personas. What's at least like one thing you've taken from each of them and have tried to apply to your own coaching trade?
Yeah. I mean, with Coach Alvarez, it was unbelievable to see him, in the last 2 years of his career. And I thought he did an unbelievable job of entrusting and delegating to his staff. Like he was truly, and I mean this in the most positive way, like he was the CEO head coach and he had total control of everything and you knew it. And just the calm and the confidence that he had about everything because of the people that he had around him that he trusted, like that, just, you never felt any type of way about any situation with Coach Alvarez because he just had this calm and confidence that like, we're good. Like he's seen this, he knows this, like we're good. We just need to follow, his vision. The passion and excitement then when Coach Bielema came in, like it was that first time energy, for him of being a first time coach and head coach and just, that shot of life that he came and brought to the facilities every single day. Not to say that it wasn't there before, but it was just a noticeable difference. Like I think that's something that was a real kind of energy giver to the program. And with Coach Chris, I loved his balance between, hey, we're here for ball and it's high level ball. And it's really, really important. And we're going to do it at a high level and we're going to win at a high level. And he's one of the most competitive dudes I've ever been around, which is awesome. But like, I remember that year where he was our position coach with the tight ends. And most days, not all days, but the majority of days, like that meeting didn't start until someone told a good joke that got us to laugh, or we told a good story like about the weekend. And it was like that balance of, yeah, you guys play football, but you're not just football players. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that makes you guys whole. And he dug into that, like it's just that holistic care. I think he does an unbelievable job with that.
You know what? It's funny. Everyone has said exactly what you said.
Really?
On everyone. I think Barry is the ultimate CEO, right? He trusts his guys. Like I would only talk to him if I made a mistake or sometimes, like not a lot.
Right.
But Coach White, I talk to every day and he coached us. you know, and it's so it's so interesting. You know, Coach B, when he showed up and he was the D coordinator, was always like an upbeat. He brought that energy. You know, he would talk trash to the fullbacks, and it was fun. You know, he's like, "Oh, we're coming for you, Bernie, today." I'm like, "You guys can't come. Don't worry about it, Coach. I got these guys' numbers." You know, so it was kind of fun. And Coach Chris is always that guy, like could joke around, but took it very seriously, like the 50-50. But if you got him outside, like even if you got him in the room, like what you're saying, he's such a player's coach. Like he's such a fun, like he cares about your family, he cares about you. You know, it's not just football. It's holistic is exactly what you say. What have you taken from those three guys that you feel like you definitely use today?
The holistic approach from Coach Chris is something that is front and center. And I just know, like, I just remember, again, like my career, my stat line there is short. It don't take very long. I mean, it's one catch for 8 yards, and that was on like 2nd and 9. So I came up short, and it was not like I didn't run my route to the proper depth, right? But again, like the care of it didn't matter if you were the All-American or the guy who was not running his route depth to the proper level, me, and getting your ass back on the bench. You know, but like that care, especially with the athletes and the young people that we're dealing with today, like their lives, you think about the world that they've grown up in. I mean, the guys that are under our care right now and that we're looking after, I mean, shoot, we've been in some sort of conflict at war ever since they've been alive, right? They've seen more stuff in their time and their mental health and their well-being. If you're only concerned about them as a player, I think you're wrong. And that's not how we're going to operate here. You know, like I want to make sure that them as a son, a brother, a friend, a significant other, everything that makes them whole, you need to know what's going on, because if you put that same, you know, kind of lens or look in the mirror with ourselves, right? Like as a husband, as a father, as a coach, as a son, you know, and sibling, like, man, if something's messed up in my home, or I feel like I'm coming up short as a father, right? Like it impacts me as a coach. And shoot, I'm 35, about to be 36 here. Like, and I still struggle with that on the daily, right? To where now we're talking about, okay, a 20, 21, year old young man who's trying to figure out his way and, his ultimate identity and where he fits in, in the locker room, in the world. And if he's got something, if someone's sick back home and you don't know that, you don't care to know that, and all you're obsessed with is like, man, his performance and his output in the weight room and his performance and, his output at practice is just declining and dipping. And you don't know the why behind it. Like, how are you going to help that kid? And that's just, and how are you ever going to get that kid through that and out of that? Like, that's where you got to pour your whole self into who they are and what they're about. And, that's something I stress to my staff, and they do an unbelievable job of all the time, that I took from Coach Chris. Trying to be better at the delegating part like Coach Alvarez, but I'm a control freak and I got my hands in too much still, probably. Like my staff, I need to give them more. And I again, the youth and the energy helps me to be like Coach B in that way. Like, not just love my job too much. I get to love what I get to do every single day that I'm in shoot.
That's fantastic. So one other guy that you coached with, who I've always been a big fan of, is Dino Babers.
Yeah.
You work with Coach Babers for a while. What is he like? Does he have any similar characteristics to any of these other guys? And then you went with him from Bowling Green to Syracuse. What was that transition like, going from being a coordinator in the MAC to being a coordinator in the ACC? Like, how did that sort of change your approach to the game?
Yeah, absolutely. Coach Babers has a lot of similarities to Coach Chris, both, from an X's and O's side of things. They're offensive-minded guys, offensive backgrounds. Very, very intelligent in the way that they go about their preparation, their personalities as well. Like in terms of, like, Coach Babers is a huge movie guy. Like, if you don't know movie quotes, you don't know movie references, it's going to be hard to carry on a long conversation with Coach Babers, because he'll lose your ass in a hurry, because he's going to drop something. You're going to be like, what? And you got to be able to keep up in that way. And then again, the care that he has for his young people, like he's an outstanding human being that cares about, as a staff member working for him, so he gave me my first opportunity as a full-time coach at Eastern Illinois. And it was one of those deals where, he took over Eastern Illinois. He needed an Illinois recruiter, a Chicagoland recruiter, and being from the Chicagoland, that was kind of like my foot in the door. But he has acted as a mentor and guided and really cared for me and my family through this whole profession. Like, I got there and I was engaged to my wife. And then, he sees me get married, and we have a conversation about like how that's going to change. And now, okay, you have a wife with you on this coaching journey and within this profession. And then we're at Bowling Green, and we're expecting our first child. And when I share the news with him, he calls me and he's like, hey, look, there's going to be a lot of practices in your life. There's going to be a lot of games. There's going to be a lot of football. You got a bright future. Good Lord's blessed you with a child that's coming. I don't want you to miss a single doctor's appointment. Like that, like your first child, that first moment, that's never coming again, And so we actually moved from Bowling Green to Syracuse when my wife was 7.5 months pregnant, and ended up having our son right in the middle of spring ball. I missed a spring practice because of it, and I'm freaking out. Like, I'm an ACC coordinator. It's year one of spring ball. We're installing our system, and I'm missing this. And like, just the ease and the comfort. Like, I remember Coach Babers and the quarterbacks FaceTiming me on a Wednesday, because my son was born the morning of that Wednesday. They were having the quarterback meeting, and they just called to FaceTime me like, Coach, we love you. We're thinking about you. And whenever you get back, you get back, and just kind of calmed all of that for me. He's just an unbelievable family man, and really prioritized that. So, it was awesome. But yeah, I mean, from a ball standpoint, going through that whole transition with him, position coach, MAC coordinator to ACC coordinator, like it's one of those moments that stands out, going from kind of that group of 5 level, I guess, of the MAC to the ACC is like one of the ways that we kind of worked our mesh point with the quarterbacks and the tailbacks, on our inside zone read, or how we did it at the MAC. One of that first years we played Louisville, and it was kind of Lamar. It wasn't kind of, it was Lamar Jackson's coming out party on a Friday night in the Carrier Dome. It was like my personal welcome to the ACC moment. Like, we're running our regular, zone read mechanics, and Louisville had a defensive end. That's like playing both, like playing the quarterback, playing the tailback. And you're just like, you sit in the office, that Saturday morning afterwards, and you're just like, all right, we got to get better. Like we got to twerk. We got to tinker and tighten some screws. We're not all the way off, but just, the different caliber of athletes and what we were doing. Like, all right, that's not going to hold up. We got to get better. And fortunate enough, we did. We found some answers, and great lesson to learn. Like, even though you're on the right track, like, don't slow down, because your ass going to get ran over. You better keep finding a way to stay out in front.
That's absolutely phenomenal stuff. And, you guys took over a program at Syracuse that had some tough seasons, really tough seasons. And, under your guidance, you guys definitely got better. And then obviously your first year at Kent State, they went off, to go 10-3 and finish with a really good season. But Bernie just kind of asked you one of the next thing I wanted to ask you about, which I know we don't have you for too much longer, but what was the biggest difference going from a position coach to a coordinator to now a head coach? Now, obviously there are more responsibilities, but are there any like little details that like really sort of changed for you and really made you sort of rethink how you're approaching coaching as a, on an everyday basis?
Yeah. The biggest thing is probably the most obvious, but until you're doing it and living it, like, you don't realize like, hey, you really got to be dialed into this. It's just who you're leading and how you need to lead them, right? So as a position coach, you're leading your group, you're leading young men, and you're responsible for that little garden in the grand scheme of things, right? Like at Eastern Illinois, I had the tight ends and the slot receivers. Like, that was my job. Like, they had to be right in the overall scheme of things. Like, hey, make sure Eric Laura is where he's supposed to be, because we have Jimmy Garoppolo, and if Laura's where he's supposed to be, Jimmy's going to throw for 5,000 yards, and we're going to be okay, right? So it's like just this little plot of land, manage it. And then you go from that to coordinator, and you have to coordinate all of it, right? Like, hey, coach the quarterbacks, make sure those young men, the players, are right, but then how are you leading the staff to make sure that you're clearly communicating the offensive game plan and how it all fits together? And, when we went to Bowling Green, we started adding some, different coaches from different places who weren't necessarily in our system or knew kind of the origins and how it all worked together. So in the offseason, you're piecing all that together so that then your new tight end coach can go off into the tight end room and he knows what you know, and he's communicating it in a manner in which you want it to. So when you get to the field for the walkthrough, right, like it's right. And you're not standing there as coaches looking at each other like, what are you doing in your room? Like that's not what we talked about. Right. And then going then again from coordinator to head coach, right. Just knowing and understanding, especially.
Oh. Bernie, you're still there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sean, you froze.
You froze, Sean.
You guys got me back?
You're back.
Yep,
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Gotcha. Where'd I lose you
You're
guys
going from
at?
coordinator to head coach.
Okay, so from coordinator to head coach then, right, is the total ownership of anything and everything that happens within your organization, within your program, good, bad, or indifferent. Like that comes to your desk, right? Like I remember being there as a, offensive coordinator for the years that I was. It was like, okay, hey, I need to know intimately about all my offensive guys, what's going on, and everything that popped up with that. And Bernie, kind of like you said with Coach B, like I still poke fun with the defensive guys, but like if there was a problem that needed to be solved with the defensive guy as the offensive coordinator, like that wasn't my burden to bear per se, right? Now, as the head coach, like the burden of leadership for any phase of the program, whether that was offense, defense, special teams, alumni engagement, right, program advancement and donors and that engagement of things. Hey, social media accounts, talent acquisition. Hey, there's the transfer portal now. There's name, image, and likeness. Understanding and knowing the whole scope of the job. APR points. How do we get our APR points? How do we get APR points back? Like all of that's on you. Like know your job, do your job, and just delegating and leading the people the right way so that anything and everything good, bad, or indifferent that happens, like there's one person that they're looking at. And it's the head football coach, and so make sure you know what you're signing up for before you sign up for that and take all that on.
I mean, but you're not in charge of like game day experience, are you? Or does that kind of fall under the umbrella?
I have an input to it, right? In a sense that like there's an experience that I want our people to have. And when you come to a game day at Kent State University, like I want that to be in a line with the standards that we have for our football program. So, if something's not right, if I notice that the concession lines are way too long, like I'm going to go say something to someone because that community member that stood in that concession line, like they didn't have a positive experience. So why would they come back to Kent State football if that's the case? And they're just going to look to, well, who's leading Kent State football? That bald, tall guy who yells way too much on the sidelines, like that jerk.
What's crazy is everything does kind of funnel up to you, no matter what it is. The hot dog's too soggy. Like, Sean, why didn't you cook it better? You mentioned, I know we were running out of time, but you mentioned NIL and the transfer portal.
Yep.
Two pretty new things. At least the NIL is very new. The transfer portal. To me, I like it, but I don't like it. There's obviously some pros and cons. You're a head coach. How important is that to your year-to-year, day-to-day ability to bring in the right guys that you want?
And how does that change your approach to recruiting, just sort of scaffolding off of what Bernie has said?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So taking transfer portal specific, I think it's just another – I think it's good. I think anytime that there's flexibility and options available to the players, all for it. Let's do it. That's fine, right? Like how many years have we seen coaches go here or there and they don't have to sit and they don't have to wait? So on a very simplistic standpoint, like I get it. To me, the transfer portal is another bucket, let's just call it the way. Hey, there's the high school athlete bucket. There is the junior college athlete bucket. Now we have the transfer portal bucket of undergrads. We have the grad transfer bucket of all these different talent buckets that no matter which one you're going into, right, you need to know what you're looking for. And again, like our staff does a great job. To me, there's obviously the genetic standards. You need to have picture parents the right way to play football at this high level, the way that we're coaching and competing at. But for us, there's a character criteria that we're going to dive into to make sure that you're the right character that fits our culture and our program and what we're about here at Kent State. And so, some people are very, very fast to go at no matter what talent bucket that is. And I feel like with the transfer talent bucket, like you got to go super fast because people think it's like this ready-made product that's good to go. And some are, sure, no problem, right? But again, a lot, you got to do your homework with it, so it's another option that's there. But in a holistic sense, with our approach to getting the right people and getting the right talent and the right characters in here, the right young men, is that we're going to build it from the high school level first and foremost, like a good diet, right? Like our diet of talent is going to come from the high school level, and that's going to be the bulk of what we are going to build from, because you can develop that and it can be sustained. And then we're going to supplement from those other buckets, right? And so I don't want to have the core of my class ever be, transfer guys. We're not going to do that. Like we signed the most high school kids in the MAC out of any program. And I mean, it wasn't even close, in all honesty, so that's where we're going to build it. That's my take on it. And I think it's going to be good for the game. Obviously, we're going to stabilize some things. It's all new. It's all change, and everyone fears the unknown, but we're going to be fine.
All right, Coach. So I know you got to get out of here soon, but anyone who follows you on social media follows the program, which if you're not, you should be. Your phrase this year seems to be the alpha. Tell us about that. What is that all about? How did that come about? And, what is sort of the mentality behind that?
Yeah, how do I get a sweatshirt?
How do we get some swag is the real question.
What, I gotta be a booster?
We'll throw y'all some swag packages. We'll get them your way. No problem. So be the alpha for us. It's our number one core belief. And so the way that we define that within our Kent State organization here is to improve and perform today. Right. So you kind of see on all of our stuff, all our branding, right, where it's like kind of be the one that we can count on, and, be the alpha that day in and day out. You're leading your own life. You know where you're going so that you can improve in those areas each and every single day. So again, we want to do that whole person approach, socially, athletically, academically, that we're getting better day in and day out. And, all this training, all this working, it comes down to specific moments where you got to show up and perform. Right. And so each and every single day, there's going to be moments for us to do that. Right. We're going to get done here. I'm going to go perform as a husband, as a father. And there's nothing more important that I'm going to go do. Right. And so that be the alpha mindset, it actually came from all the way back when I was in Charleston, Illinois, at Eastern Illinois. My fiance and I, we got a puppy and started reading up. And there was this section that I was reading where every single pup that gets born, right, kind of has the idea that being a descendant of a wolf, like someday they're going to lead the pack. And I was like, they're going to be the alpha dog. And I was like, man, what a great idea that if every single one of my slot receivers were going to be, hey, I'm going to be the best slot receiver in the country. And that's where, hey, be the alpha, be the best. Let's lead the country. Let's lead our own lives. And it's been something that I had as a position coach. It became a staple of who we were as an offense. And now that I tricked enough people to run my own program, we're going to ride with it and keep using it.
I love it.
Well, Sean, thank you so much. This is such a pleasure getting to pick your brain, and we wish you the best. I hope you go 16-0. And, if you beat Wisconsin, I wouldn't be happy about it, but I would be happy for you at least.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for the opportunity. This has been great to catch up and share some laughs, share some stories. I mean, it's been a while, like you said, Bernie, to catch up on some of these things that long forgotten, and it's just amazing. It's good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Coach Lewis. And until next time on Wisconsin, I don't know what's your chant at Kent State. What do you guys say?
Go Flashes.
Go Flashes.
Go
on
Flashes.
Wisconsin and go Flashes.
On Wisconsin. Go Flash. Be the alpha.
There we go.
Hey, thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.